be a part of this specific essential plan, have persistent asthma, not received a cooling unit in the past 5 years through HEAP, yeah, request installation. So definitely tell everybody, let people know that this is an option for those who need it. And yeah, this is cool options. So right now, I put the QR code in case you want to like take a look straight to the website. But essentially, you put in your address and it lets you know where is a cool option available all throughout the year. So right now, since we are in a heat wave, it's going to show you cooling centers, but cooling centers are activated or they're available only when it's an emergency declaration. So when the heat wave stops, I think on the books it's 8 o'clock. So right now, like you're not probably going to find a cooling center, but you can find a cooling option. So that can be a library, community center, a store, any of the options that is okay with letting the public into their space to cool off. So yeah, this is available to look at all throughout the year. Doesn't just have to be a heat wave, but when it is a heat wave, that's when you'll see more options that are cooling centers. So this, if you want more information on anything I just talked about related to public health and hot weather, we have hot weather and your health right here to have a look, whether you want some talking points, you want some flyers, you want any sort of information that can be helpful for your community board and getting the message out there. I put the QR code, have a go, let me know what you think. And then these are just some additional ideas if you get questions from anybody who wants to offer their space in any sort of way. So just some COVID tests, masks, pack and plays and toys. I put that there because well, kids are also susceptible to heat illness and heat exhaustion or heat stroke. They are 3 to 5 times more likely than an adult to experience that. And so if they're in a cooling space where they need their body to cool down, it's going to take a while. So pack and plays and toys is just an option for them to keep them mentally occupied while that's happening. And yeah, otherwise, definitely things to keep in mind for a power outage or COVID tests and masks. So yeah, these are some additional resources. Have an event planning guidance that can be helpful when thinking about how to plan for an event safely during this time of year. But we also have a summer health and heat safety guide for organizations available in these languages. And it's basically all the information I just told you, but like in 3 pages. So the first page is just general information. The second page is health. And then the third page is more event related, or what can you do as a community-based organization? What can you offer? Just some ideas. So that's also on this website here, and some Keep Cool postcards and the data hub if you're interested in like doing research or looking at hospitalizations and emergency department visits during this time. If perhaps there's a community-based organization that would be interested in a training to get people ready to look out for each other and like spot those signs of heat illness and take action. We do have trainings in this link here so that you can request one of us to come out to you, and yeah, it'll be great. So that's all I have to share. I'll pass it back to you, Khadija.
Thank you. Do anybody have any questions for Kat pertaining to heat safety?
That is more of a comment. I was actually really shocked when she said that certain mental health medications can block you from whatever. Because I was diagnosed as bipolar 26 years ago, and I have never once heard that. I mean, I've only taken medication like the last 10 years, and I just got off of it with my therapist last year. But like, I don't think a lot of people know that. And that's alarming to me because I know a lot of people on mental health medications right now. So when these people are prescribing these medications and implying that it's a lifelong sentence to take the medications, they should at least tell them the risks associated with it, because that is not on any of the information when you get your prescription. It doesn't say if you overheat, you might not know and die.
Yeah, it's
Thank
very
you.
scary. Yeah, thank you.
Anyone else have questions for Kat in regards to heat safety?
This is
Yes.
Paige. Oh,
Go ahead, Hazel. Go ahead. So
Oh,
go
I just want to know what plans the city has to improve the number of cooling centers that are in East Flatbush because we have very few.
Yes, so I can share in the chat current legislation. It's being advocated by New York City Environmental Justice Alliance to be put forward in City Hall to improve the I believe it's to make more available cooling centers. I don't remember the exact number, but it might be like one cooling center per I'm gonna put it in the chat so you can have a look because it just came out today. So I'll put that right now because that's a great question. So that's one I know that's currently like moving through. But otherwise, I think there's also the urban forestry plan. So that's more of a longer term solution in order to increase green canopy. And because trees make a difference, like a 20-degree difference, and they have so many benefits for heat, for flooding, and it's, it's nice. So also for air quality. So that's another longer term solution. So yeah,
Kat, can you
let me
give
put
me
that.
1 second? Give me 1 second.
Oh,
Just
yeah,
wait.
sure.
Miss Leon, Nadine, can you please mute 718? The 718 that's unverified, please. Go
What you
ahead,
said
Kat.
again, Miss Khadija?
Can you please mute the 718 number because it's creating a lot of chaos.
Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
I'm sorry, Kat.
Wait.
Go ahead.
Oh no, that's okay. I'm just putting it in the chat. The legislation.
Mr. Tate, you had a question?
Yes, I have a question. A couple of comments. Yes, again, my name is George Tate, and one of my questions is basically what Hazel just asked. Additionally, are these slides available? Would you be able to share these slides?
Yes, definitely. I would love to share
Yeah.
them.
Yeah, thank you, Pastor. And
No, thank you.
I noticed two things that on the list, I didn't see caffeine listed when he mentioned alcohol and sugary drinks, but I did not see anything about caffeine there. Is there a change in that?
Yeah, you caught my slip up, so I'm glad you brought that up. I didn't mention that. Thank you. Yes, caffeine can definitely play a role in dehydrating you. So, also being
That's the agency, the city
Yeah.
agency.
Daniel, can you please mute your phone?
Yes, and the last thing, as a diabetic, I know a lot of diabetic medication could also make you sweat a lot and dehydrate. So I just wanted to make that comment for anyone else because I've been a diabetic and then I know it makes me sweat a lot. And they say, yes, the medication will make you sweat.
Yes, and it also is very confusing because then you don't know, like, is this the heat? Like, is it me? Is it, like, there's so many questions. So very scary. So with that, I think what so I'll include the slide deck, but I'm also going to include the list of medications that is like that you can have a look and you can let people know if it's helpful. And yeah, just to be sure you all are out there and equipped. So yeah, thank you for your comment and question.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you. Miss Adele, you have a question?
Yes. Right now, I'm at the hospital. What's going on in a lot of the hospitals? They're down, the AC, especially in Kings County, the AC went out, and they still left the patients in rooms of temperature.
Miss Adele, we cannot hear you.
And
We still can't hear you. It's very bad.
I'm at the hospital. That's why.
Okay.
What I'm going to say is a lot of the power went down, a lot of the AC went out in some of the buildings, especially in Kings County, and it's just now coming up.
It's just
Okay.
now tonight.
Okay,
It's
so
just now tonight.
um I think that's we can raise that concern and give it to Daniel to let the CM Farah know in regards to
Yes.
what's going on. All right?
Yes, because they had me in a room for the last 3 days
Okay.
at +degree temperature.
Yeah, we truly understand that. Thank you,
Mm.
Miss Adele. We're going to talk to Daniel and bring that to his attention. Is there
Oh,
anyone else who has questions pertaining to heat safety, heat health and safety? Okay, thank you. Um,
Thanks,
Thank you,
everyone.
Kat.
Stay safe out there.
Okay, the next person who will be presenting um, is Detective Skinner on the line because we're doing public safety, and then we're going to go into transportation. I see nothing. We'll then get back. So we have no Skinner. The next one is transportation. Jackson, are you ready?
Hey, yes, I am.
Okay, I'm going to stop sharing so that you can
Perfect.
share.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Good evening.
You're chopping up a little bit if you were talking. Can the person who has 718 and it ends with 88 please mute their phone? We see your screen.
My name is Jackson Chuba, advocacy and organizations. We're a profit in it's I'm here to
Jackson,
chat
I
a little
think you're a
bit.
little choppy. You're a little choppy. Yeah,
Hmm.
you sound better now, but it goes a little in and out.
Okay. Let me turn. That helps. How's the audio there? Is that a little bit better?
That's better.
Okay. Plans, we think a lot about how we can have design and policy so make it safer for everyone using our streets and sidewalks. And one of the big campaigns that we've advocated for over the past couple of years is around safety at intersections, particularly through daylighting. And you might be thinking to yourself, well, what the heck is daylighting? It sounds like a crazy term, but really what it's all about at intersections. And right now we've got too many vehicles parked in
I'm
the
sorry,
crosswalk up.
Jackson, I'm
Yes,
sorry. Can you
still
do where it says your audience? No, no, no. Your audience window shows that you click the enter full screen mode so that we can see your presentation.
okay. Switch, yes.
Okay. Better. Yeah. All you have to do is click present and then do full screen. And then click present. There you go. Perfect.
Okay. Now, as you can see on the left side here, when you're driving a vehicle, you might be pulling up to parked right up to the crosswalk, and you can't see people that are trying to cross the street. If you're at a stop sign, for example, you might have to pull all the way into the crosswalk to try and see the cars coming across the street, let alone the people trying to cross the street when they're walking. The middle image shows what daylighting provides with more visibility. So it's providing daylight, and therefore you can see people as you're crossing the street, whether you're walking or whether you're driving. And then on the far right, you see that there's this sort of ultimate version of it where there's curb extension or bulb outs, as the Department of Transportation calls them, where they're able to provide more space for people at the intersections. It narrows it, meaning people are driving a little bit slower as they're crossing through the intersection, and it's a little bit safer for everyone. 50% of crashes in New York City happen at intersections. So I'll go very briefly. I know we're short on time here for everyone. I'm respectful of all your time. This is just a little bit about what I'll share, and I can share the slide deck with everyone after as well. Daylighting, like I said, increases the visibility and helps reduce collisions at intersections, specifically when there's that ultimate intersection narrowing where it creates a little bit more visibility and creates a little less space for people to drive fast through intersections. This is the graphic I just showed. Again, sharing that when we have that more visibility, everyone is a little bit safer at our intersections. This is it's required. Unfortunately, New York City is currently opts out of it. City law last year passed Intro 854, which daylights 100 intersections per year. And one of the reasons I wanted to speak with all of you about this as from an education. Right now, there's a New York City Council legislation and create that visibility across the city. Right now being heard in City Council, and presently we just reached 27 sponsors today. A little bit of the timeline. Mayor Adams committed to daylighting 1,000 intersections a year in November 2023 after young Kamari Hughes was hit and killed in an intersection just trying to cross the street going to school in Fort Greene. As of August of 2024, this is the publicly available information that the Department of Transportation daylit across New York City. Again, why we need it, really our intersections are unsafe as it is. About a little over 50% of traffic fatalities happen at intersections. I heard at the top of the conversation before the meeting started that someone mentioned Farragut Road had some crazy crashes this week. Someone mentioned Glenwood as well. And, we see this across the city, but specifically, I know you probably see it in your neighborhood or your portion of the district where it's just where the most conflict occurs. And so here are some of the benefits: increasing shorter crossing times for pedestrians, increasing visibility, protecting accessibility access, reducing the crowding at crosswalks, and potentially providing more space where potentially plants or trees could go in those kind of curb extensions as well. And so specifically looking at Community District 17, I pulled this information from CrashMapper earlier today, and this is from just a year to date. And so although there's only a few fatalities noted in red in the district, there were almost over 950 total crashes. And many of these were motorists that were injured and people driving that were injured. And it's interesting to see that when we look back even 6 years, that this just, again, replicates itself. And so many of these crashes and injuries and fatalities occur at intersections in the district, residential streets or busy commercial corridors with lots of vehicle traffic on it. And so these are some of the ways that the Department of Transportation builds out daylighting in New York City. You see some of the things such as on the far left with the truffle paint and the white lines and the plastic flex post. But it could also look a lot different from with things like bike corrals or planters, as you see on the bottom left there. Could be city bike stations. It could be a variety of different things that create the space that provides more safety for everyone in the intersection. And then, really, like I said, wanted to share this with all of you this evening because we've presented this information and worked with 22, and now it's actually 23 community boards across the city. Safer Staten Island, Bronx Community Board 6 became the most recent community board to pass a resolution in support of daylighting last week. And then today, like I mentioned, additional council members signed on, Councilmember Morano from the South Shore. We do have citywide coverage for conversations here, and I really wanted to make sure that your community board, your committee was informed on this conversation since there is the present conversation at City Council. And Councilmember Lewis has been evaluating this bill as it overlaps with your district. So, if you all are interested, I'd be happy to share more either tonight or at a later date given the timing. And then just to put it on the table that other boards have written these resolutions in support of daylighting, if that's something you'd be interested in learning more about as well. So I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jackson. We can only take 2 questions because I want to start with the department next. Are there any questions for Jackson? Please raise your hand and I will acknowledge. Okay. Thank you, Jackson.
Thank you.
I would like to now.
And I'm sorry, I'm frozen.
Oh, Hazel, you have a question for Jackson?
Yes, how very often the daylighting is so short that it's still, it's not enough to reduce the blocking of the line of vision or something like that. Because there's one on Kings Highway and Clarendon Road. There's a truck parked there, and it shouldn't be there, but it's supposed to be. Just in front of it is a very tiny daylighting spot. But when the road was changed, the intersection from East 55th and Kings Highway, you have to go into Kings Highway to make a right onto Clarendon, and you cannot see the traffic coming down the service road of Kings Highway. It's very dangerous. And that truck has been there for a couple of years.
Wow. Yeah, that's a great point that you raised, and I really appreciate that, especially because we see trucks getting bigger and bigger in New York City. And in addition to what it sounds like the illegal parking, it sounds like the size of the vehicle really prohibits people from being able to see as they're driving through the intersection. And it's terrible to have to feel like you have to go into the intersection to see oncoming traffic, and it's a very scary feeling.
Thank you, Marguerite. You have your hand up.
Yes, thank you. Looking at those 3 images that you showed, I could understand why we would put around the city the second image, but the third image where there are some planters and trees and things, and I've seen them around. I don't understand the point of that, because that also limits your vision. When you have one of those big flower pots or bushes or anything, it's again, if a child is coming out of something, you still can't see. So why is that part of the design concept instead of just leaving it all empty?
Totally. Yeah, that's a great point that you raise. And I think, the design solutions could look a lot different depending on the street context, whether it's sort of wider or more narrow. And as you're describing, the different heights. And so, a lot of these are selected so that there is still the visibility around them or over them. And therefore, if, for example, a city bike station could provide the daylighting versus a planter or a boulder, for example. So just different tools in the toolbox to create the space where people that are driving can't come into the space and park there illegally.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, this is the last question because then we have to go to department. Kevin?
I'm sorry, no, not really a question. So if a committee member has a question, I'm happy to step back if another committee member has a question.
Good evening. Good evening.
Good evening,
Mr.
Daly.
I can hear you, Mr. Daly.
Good evening, everyone. Hi, sorry. I got up and shouldn't join. Kevin, I mean, Jackson, I have a few questions. Because one of the concerns that we have, I love this presentation, how they sound very good, like they would sound great for the community. But at the end of the day, we are a true fear zone. We're constantly concerned with parking. We're constantly concerned with movements, and we get these data that really don't reflect a crisis, right? But we're presented with these data on a regular basis as if it is a crisis within our own community. So one of my major questions to you is, is there a crisis needed, and what's the data to support that there's a crisis, or is this something else that now wants to be put into our community, which would affect things like parking, affect things like the flow of traffic and the movement of traffic throughout our community. We're already bombarded with a number of things that already have affected the flow of traffic, our two-fare zone, with a lot of falsified or embellished data. So I'm just concerned that it sounds good, but is this really a need of our community? And I haven't heard that from the presentation.
Totally. It's a great point you raise, and certainly when the conversation is had about design changes in the street, there's always the possibility that parking potentially is reallocated. So in this case, if you were to support daylighting, there might be some changes in the parking in the community, but that's why I'm giving this as an educational presentation. This is totally up to you all to figure out what might work in the other boards, for example, have created resolutions that specifically focus on places like schools, senior centers, hospitals, libraries, or other community institutions as focal points for where they want to put daylighting to make sure that the people using those spaces are safe. So definitely a consideration, as you're, understanding and working through this. And then I think the second part about the crisis, we see across the city that there are so many crashes that are occurring, particularly in intersections. And then the people that are most impacted are often children and seniors. And so the data, from the past year, there's been quite a few crashes involving motorists, like I said, people driving in vehicles. And then over the past 6+ years, lots of folks across the district. But this is also true and representative across the city. So we're seeing this particularly with children and seniors across the city, as well as what the data I presented just for the district. But thank you so much for the comments, and I really appreciate that, and definitely something.
Yes, thank you. This will not be the last. This is just the first of ongoing conversations with Jackson pertaining to daylighting. So this is not the last, but we will speak with you more for the next year. Well, in the next session when we begin back in August or September. I would like to pass it off to the Department of Transportation. Renee Lauren, Sean Macias, and Greg Borwald. Are you guys ready to present? Thank you. I'm excited to hear this stuff, to hear your presentation. I'm going to stop sharing so you can share.
Okay, thank you. And in the meantime, if anybody wants to say anything before I get started from our team, please go ahead. Otherwise, I'll jump in. And is everybody able to see? Okay, it looks like it's sharing.
Yes, it's sharing.
Okay, great. Good evening. My name is Lauren Renee. I'm a project manager at the OT's Bike Unit, and I'm here to talk about a proposal for a bike network expansion within CP17. And this is not the first time I've been here. It's been a few years. I think the last time that I had the pleasure of presenting was in October 2021. We have been working on this at least in my time since 2020. And we hosted a workshop with you. We worked with you throughout 2021 to develop a proposal. Since then, we've taken a step back and started to look at the community as a whole, including CP14. So just to give you some background here, why are we coming to you, and why did we come to you back in 2020 to start this process? And it's because we have identified both Community Board 17 and neighboring Community Board 14 as bicycle priority districts. Our crash data was showing us that there was a high number of bicyclists that are either killed or seriously injured in these districts in proportion to the number of lane miles that are underground. So you can see this map here. We identified several in the city, and we have been going to each of them and trying to address this issue. At that time when this was identified. We were working under the Green Wave Plan, where we were really trying to expand a bike network across the city, and specifically build 75 miles of bicycle infrastructure within these 10 bicycle priority districts. So this is where our story sort of starts. Then afterwards, the streets plan came out. And so when we think about what are the areas where we really need to target our resources based off of chronic disinvestment, you know, Central Brooklyn certainly comes up as a tier 1 investment area. A lot of this is just making sure that neighborhoods like East Flatbush are getting a slice of the pie. A lot of times in these areas where we're seeing the lighter colors, you know, downtown Brooklyn, parts of Manhattan, Western Queens is where we have really been focusing a lot of our resources. And we just want to make sure that that is being spread equitably. So that's what the streets plan is trying to address. And it also has very, you know, mandated goals that we expand our bike network, protected bike lanes, but other sort of bike infrastructure is also included in that, as well as redesigning hundreds of intersections per year. So, and, you know, after our time in 2020, 2021, looking specifically at CP17, we decided to kind of take a step back and look at the area as a whole. We spent a lot of time working with CB14 to also address similar issues where we're seeing this huge gaps in the bike network. The bike network is not connecting to each other. It's not reaching, you know, parks and important destinations. And also really needed to start working in this area because City Bike was expanding. So now a portion of CB17 is within the coverage zone of City Bike, which brings more riders, and ridership across the city in general has just been going up and up per year. So just taking a closer look at what exists in CB17 today, you know, we have Bedford Avenue, one of the oldest bike routes, and a very long continuous bike route that can get you all the way to Williamsburg, Clareton Road, Rockaway Parkway, and then at the top right of the map, you can see a little bit of East New York Avenue. But overall, there's not a lot of connectivity here, not a lot of connectivity with CB14. And we wanted to begin to address those gaps, you know, provide just more of a robust network that can provide another additional transportation options for your constituents, connect to parks and greenways, adjacent neighborhoods, etc. And overall, when we put bike infrastructure in the ground, even when it is simply just putting a bike lane, painted bike lane in, it improves safety for everyone using the roadway because it gives us an opportunity to organize the roadway, standardize the travel lanes. You know, we tend to drive slower and be more alert when we have better markings on the road, narrower travel lanes. Bike lanes obviously provide a dedicated space for cyclists and increase the predictability of where cyclists are going to be in the road. And, you know, markings refreshes such as, you know, crosswalks, you know, just providing better visibility for everyone and increasing pedestrian safety. And here's our general toolkit. You know, we have the lightest touch option, which is shared bike lanes. We really use this for wayfinding and just network connectivity, you know, in situations where we don't have the width in the street to be able to provide a standard bike lane, which is shown in the center here, which all of the bike lanes that are in CB17 today are standard bike lanes. And then there are the protected bike lanes. Think of this a little more as a complete street redesign, and it comes with a host of benefits, and it really improves pedestrian safety. They are the biggest winners out of these redesigns. But today, I want to talk and take a first initial step in improving and expanding a bike network within CP17 and only talk about shared and standard bike lanes. We will not be talking about protected bike lanes tonight. I just want to move into public outreach and just sort of summarize what we really did in 2021 and 2022. In February 2021, we got to take over one of your transportation committee meetings and have a workshop. And, it was very interactive. We had breakout groups, sort of to get this process started. And then we began a greater outreach campaign that included, we had a feedback portal where you could actually draw, on a map routes that you would like to see or pinpoint specific problem areas. And we also developed a survey that was available on that website. But in order to make sure that we spread the word, we really got out into the community, and we did over 20 pop-up events in CB17 as well as parts of CB14. And we hung flyers everywhere we could, and we talked to a lot of people. Overall, over 1,700 people participated in this, either through in-person surveys or taking the survey online, probably getting the QR code or link from a flyer, or we definitely did our best to try to get out there as much as we could and share the word through community partners. Oops. So getting to the proposal itself, here's a map of what is being proposed in CB14. So we spent 2022, 2023, part of 2024, working with CB14 to develop M-Network expansion. And, a back and forth, based off of, some of the comments that they were requesting protected bike lanes on certain corridors. So there was a presentation that was just given recently for Cortelyou and Dorchester Road. Parts of this network is already being implemented, including Foster and Farragut Road. And then, this is going to be implemented in phases, but this is what came out of the process of working with the community board and the community. For CB17, we want to take an incremental approach. Back in October 2021, we presented a potential very ambitious plan highlighting many streets which fit the criteria of lower volumes, provided the connectivity that we were looking for. But we wanted to take a big step back here and approach this incrementally. So given what is going on in CB14 and what will be implemented this year and over the next year, we want to pick routes that are complementary to that network and start small. And I'm going to go street by street and talk about what the design would be for these. But this is why, we're talking a lot about CB14 because, we have this border on Bedford Avenue, but we want to make sure that folks can get across Bedford Avenue and also just ride in the general neighborhood safely. So starting with our one-way narrow streets, and sorry, let me just take a step back and in this map and just name the overall streets that we're talking about here. So Foster and Farragut Road, Snyder Avenue and Cortelyou Road, and on the east side of Holy Cross Cemetery, Beverly Road and a part of Schenectady Avenue. Those are sort of the east-west connections and working with the cemetery, given that this is sort of a big barrier. So what is the best way to get across the district, given the fact that we have the cemetery in the middle? And then we would also like to introduce two north-south connections on New York Avenue and Brooklyn Avenue. And this being, a first step in network expansion that would be installed in phases. So what is the design going to look like for this? On streets where we have only 30 feet wide, it's one way, and that's part of Snyder Avenue, and that's part of Cortelyou Road. And this is just trying to get us from Bedford Avenue, across there and into CB7, further into CB17. We're just proposing, putting down a standard bike lane. These are streets that have parking on both sides and a pretty wide travel lane. We have enough room, and this is very standard. We do this all across the city on residential streets, where we can put a 5-foot bike lane, and it's typically on the left side of the street. On our 44-foot wide project, our corridors, these are our two-way streets. We are proposing a bike lane in one direction. we fortunately do not have the width to put it in both directions. So we're trying to be strategic here and have one-way directional pairs. So when you think about New York and Brooklyn Avenue, one will be northbound, one will be southbound, and with Foster and Farragut, one will be eastbound and one will be westbound. So in this is just a very minor markings change. We would shift the center line slightly so that we can have one side of the street that has a 5-foot bike lane and 11-foot travel lane, and the other side of the street that could have a 12-foot travel lane. And in everything that I'm talking about here, we are not making any changes to the parking lanes. So we're keeping the parking lanes as they are, and we're just adding markings to the center of the road so that we can organize traffic and provide space for bikes. So this would be on New York Avenue, Brooklyn Avenue, parts of Snyder Avenue, Beverly Road to get us to Ralph Avenue to sort of complete that eastbound connection. Schenectady Avenue, which will help us get around the cemetery, Foster Avenue, and Farragut Road. Now, there's certain areas where we just don't have the width to be able to accommodate a full bike lane, but we want to make sure that it's still the best route, and we want to, for wayfinding purposes, make sure that cyclists can still continue on it, as well as providing markings on the road to signal to motorists that they should expect bikes to be there. So we're proposing this treatment for Cortelyou Road between Brooklyn Avenue and Schenectady Avenue. This is south of the cemetery, and a portion of New York Avenue where it narrows south of Foster Avenue all the way to Avenue H. And the last part of this proposal is that we do want to install what we call hardened daylighting. And you can see the photo here, right? We've been talking about daylighting tonight and how we want to provide visibility at the intersections. But we find that daylighting is most successful when there is a barrier in place, because otherwise, you'll have a parked truck or a parked car there that, might be standing. That will still block the visibility, and we won't get the benefits of clearing that space. So when we put hardening, and that can be in the form of barriers, we have barriers in different forms, whether they're concrete barriers, we have plastic, fortified plastic barriers, and then, in the presentation that was given beforehand, we can also do daylighting with planters and city bike stations and things like that. But in the context of when we have a bike lane, intersecting another street, we can actually protect cyclists by bringing them to the curb and having a barrier that separates them between traffic, which is a huge benefit to the cyclists, as well as achieving the goals of daylighting. So we want to propose this at 3 locations where we've looked at the crash data, and we've seen that there are a high number of right turning vehicle crashes, right? So we are proposing this at 3 intersections along Bedford Avenue. Bedford Avenue at Linden Boulevard, where Caton meets, that's a truck route, right? So high truck turns there, across the bike lane. This will be a huge benefit and comfort to cyclists. Bedford at Clareton Road, this is where we have the intersection of 2 existing bike routes, but our crash data is showing us that right turning vehicle crashes are higher than other intersections where there's bike lanes in the district. And lastly, the complicated intersection of Bedford Avenue at Flatbush, where Flatbush meets Foster Avenue. This is another place where we're seeing, right turn crashes. And given the complexity of the intersection and the difficult one to get across, we think that it will be a great benefit here. So I want to stress that this is very, the design, even though we're just kind of showing you a prototype in this this photo, it's going to be very, very site specific, right? And while it does, require some parking removal at the intersections, if there is even parking there, we do want to stress that it's not always going to look like what you're seeing in this photo. We're going to make sure that it is context sensitive to the geometry and the environment, etc. So again, like the benefits of daylighting and hardened daylighting, for cyclists, is that it's going to improve sight lines between turning vehicles, cyclists, and pedestrians. Pedestrians are huge winners with daylighting. It's going to promote slower vehicle turns because we're going to have rubber speed bumps and then, just making sure that you can't just quickly turn because of a wide radius. And it clarifies the travel path through the intersection for cyclists and motorists and everyone. So it really improves predictability. You'll know where to expect a cyclist. So in conclusion, here is the proposal in front of you to take an incremental step to expand the bike network in CB17. We are proposing only standard and shared lanes. There will be no changes to parking lanes or travel lane loss with this proposal. We are also proposing 3 intersections in which we would like to install hardened daylighting based off the crash data that we looked at throughout the district. These are places where we're seeing right turn crashes across bike lanes, and this will be a huge benefit for not only cyclists, but also pedestrians. Next steps is that we would like to spend the summer designing this. We really want to hear your feedback, and then we jump into the design phase where we take this, these general designs that I've been showing you and making sure that they're customized for the blocks that we would like to install these designs, and collect any additional feedback from yourselves or any other community stakeholders. And then starting in fall, we would like to implement this proposal in phases. And that would continue throughout 2026. So that concludes my presentation. I'll go back to the last slide so we can just look at the proposal, and happy to take any questions and comments that you have. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, before we need people to raise their hand in order for us to have these questions be answered. So the first person that I see with their hand raised is Hazel Martinez. Then the next person I see after is Mr. Johnson, and then Mr. Daly.
Yes, good evening, Hazel Martinez. I am concerned that our community is always being forced to have, no matter what we say, to have something that we don't want. When I see other communities getting rid of bike lanes, and some of our streets, that's not a really a viable option, since some of the streets are very narrow. We have I don't see people riding bicycles to the extent that they may in other communities. And why are we being forced to have something that we do not really want? I've had a bike lane in front of my house on Clarendon Road for years. I mean, maybe every 3-4 months I see someone on a bicycle, and it just it disturbs me because we're being made to have something we don't really want. And you give us statistics about all of these accidents, but I think some of these accidents are caused because bicycle riders tend to be irresponsible and need to, that is where focus needs to be, because they do a lot of things that you should not do. They don't obey any rules whatsoever and don't stop at any lights.
Thank you for your comments,
I'm
Hazel.
happy to
Go ahead,
respond
Sharon.
to that also. Yeah, thank you for your comments. I think one benefit of starting with this kind of incremental network here is the streets will be organized better. You'll be able to foresee where a bike's going to be, and the road will just be organized, right? I think maybe some of the crashes or the behavior that you're seeing on the streets is because right now there isn't any space delineated for bikes or vehicles. So our hope here is to provide some dedicated space in the roadway, fully understanding that the neighborhood here values parking and capacity. So, we've been thoughtful about the routes we've chosen, the amount of routes we've chosen, and also, the type of design that we've pursued. But thank you for your comment.
Mr. Johnson, you're next.
You mean Miss Johnson?
Miss Johnson, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I have a deep voice, but I was born a very attractive woman.
No, I'm so sorry.
So to address, I see in the comments people saying it's not for this community. I agree. On top of the fact that it is going to be a part of this community because of what's happening in this community. So my actual question is, because it's going to come here too, whether y'all like it or not, if y'all don't stop selling your houses, but I noticed it more in New Bedside, Williamsburg, New Bushwick. I lived in Bushwick 30 years ago when no one wanted to live there. You can organize the streets as efficiently as you like. That is not going to stop drunk bike riders riding around. And I fancy myself a pretty cautious driver and look out for these things. But a lot of these people are getting hit because they're doing circus tricks in the street. I see them do it. I have to swerve for them all the time. So the same way you stop, like my actual question is it legal for a bike rider to be wasted on their bike coming from the bar and swerving in and out of traffic? Like I've had arguments with them in my car, and I've only been driving 4 of my 29 years in New York every day. I've driven for work. This is the first time I've had a car. And now I'm noticing it where as a pedestrian and a subway rider, I did not notice it. So until we get some control over these bike riders, because they're doing a lot on the road, trying to, get to where they're getting to faster. Like I do and other people do, get up earlier, make yourself have time to get where you want to go. But I don't see anyone enforcing the bike riders. And then I'm getting cussed out by drunk bike riders while I'm just trying to, get home late night sometimes from work.
Yeah, sorry about that experience. If you have locations where you're experiencing that consistently, please share them with the board or with us. You can put it in the chat. We can talk to our partners at PD. Riding a bike drunk carries the same consequences as operating a vehicle drunk. So it is illegal. So if you're seeing it in the same place, or if there's any sort of consistency to what you're observing, we can help address that with PD.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Daly, you're next.
All right, so I'm gonna piggyback on what Hazel Martinez said and further the conversation. This is not the first time that we've had this conversation about bike racks and bike lanes in our community, right? Because the fact is that they go together, right? They're going to go together, and inevitably, it's going to affect parking. And I said this before, and I'm saying it again. We are a two-fare zone. We don't ride bicycles in our lane, to the extent that we need a vast network of bicycle lanes, bicycle racks within our community. I did the walk. I've seen the lack of usage of the bicycle in our district, right? 2, the surveys that were taken were by bike riders in New York City, not bike riders in our community, because we don't have it. As a matter of fact, I'm sitting in front of the park right now for the last hour, and I've seen 0 persons riding a bike. I'm literally sitting down in the area that you're talking about. 3, New York City is a no-fault city. That means that the pedestrian essentially feels that they can do whatever they want in the streets. Cross anywhere, turn anywhere, walk, step out in the middle of traffic, whatever they want to do, they do it recklessly because there is no penalty for those behaviors. Those behaviors are normalcy. So the 4th comment is that I go back to what these data that you're talking about, right? People get hit by car every day across the world. Unfortunately, the majority of them is not because of the motorist. The majority of them is because of carelessness by the pedestrian. That's a fact. But when you present the data, as if the motorist is the cause of these accidents, right? And that's not fair to a community that does not want these bike lanes. And the fact that we are pushing bike lanes because, and I'm going to say it, Ms. Johnson, because of gentrification is not acceptable for the community that I represent. We don't want any more additional bike lanes, any more additional bike racks. As a matter of fact, we want to get rid of some of them that we're having. So, and this is the second or third time that you guys have come to us with it, and it shows our community does not want it. And this is a push from other communities that want to ride through our community. This is the argument we had 5 years ago when Bill de Blasio was mayor, when he tried to push the issue, because this was his mandate that was followed through by Eric Adams. And this is unacceptable that we keep trying to get pushed with these things that our community has clearly stated that we are not interested in a further push. Not to mention, I don't think you're telling people how much it is to rent a city bike per day, right? Most of us are not going to pay $19 to $20 or whatever the fee is to rent a city bike. So those issues, I mean, when you make these presentations, they sound great, right? If people don't know the facts. And again, I don't want to reiterate, I've gone through it and it's on WebEx, and I'm standing firm to say that our community does not want any additional pushes on bike lanes, bike racks, and the impedance of our drivers and parking spaces within our community. We are so inundated with speed cameras, we're inundated with this, we're inundated with so many different things that have been thrown into our community. I have looked at ways, I've traveled the city, I've seen ways, and within our community, you turn on your ways right now, if you're in your car, you will notice that we're saturated with all of these regressive taxes that are happening to our community, and it's not fair. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Daly. Do you guys have any comments?
Yeah, just clarify that the bike lanes proposed in this project do not affect capacity or parking.
It absolutely does. It always does.
It does.
And it
I
also,
agree with you, Mr. Daly. That's why I said y'all need to stop selling y'all houses. It's the G word that's making this happen.
right. And the other part of that too is not only does it affect parking, it also affects the flow of traffic. So we are getting a push to an expensive way of traveling, right? And we're forced to, in a two-fare zone, to now forced to take public transportation to go where we're going. It is not fair, and we are not a dumping ground for these different issues that people want to push within our community. It is absolutely, unequivocally unacceptable. And this data does not reflect our community on a whole. I'm not saying people don't get hit by a car. They do. But they get hit by a car around the world. And around the world is not putting up bike lanes and bike racks. And it's an unfortunate data. It's an unfortunate fact. It's just like we have jails. It's unfortunate, but we do have them. So this is not appropriate.
So I'm happy
And I
to
stand
share
firm
with
with that.
you the data that bears out that roadways with a conventional bike lane, like the one that is being proposed today, does improve safety across the board for all users. I'm happy to share that with the board following this meeting.
Okay, so we have a few more questions. I have some questions also, but I want to make sure that members are able to give their feedback so that you guys can collect it to determine what you guys are going to do in regards to kind of getting rid of it, because right now what we're hearing is no one really wants them. But before I give any feedback, I would like for Mr. Tate, I see you. Marguerite, I also see you. Leononi, I also see you. So I'm seeing everyone's hand, so I'm going to, but Mr. Tate, you're next.
Okay, good evening again. I do have a question as how these routes were selected, for one, because I'm going to start with a narrow streets, okay, and then I'm going to come for last Pilot Road, which is another issue. But I see you selected a Cortelli Road. You also selected Snyder Avenue. both of those streets are two-way streets, and it's very narrow, especially for you. So I don't see where you are going to create a bike lane and not affect the driving area, which is already narrow and it's full of what's what I'm looking for? Those the bumps, full of bumps. So because
Speed
I
bump?
walk, yeah, the speed bumps, and it's very narrow. Because I walk around there just about every day, and it's very very difficult to walk around there, especially if you're turning from Brooklyn Avenue towards the Cortelyou. There's no room, and when you're driving over there, there's not much space in between the two the upcoming traffic. You know, because as I say, it's two ways and it's very narrow. So unless it impacts the parking, which we don't want, I don't see how that could be a safe route for bikers.
Yeah, thank you
Now,
for. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Finish your thought.
yeah, and then Farragut Road is a very dangerous road. As I mentioned in the beginning, before we started the meeting, I was the one who mentioned the situation around Farragut Road. You have lots and lots of trucks coming up and down all day, all night. You also, and just to make cut this conversation short, I'm going to give you, on Thursday, there was a road rage incident on Farragut on East 39th Street. Okay? And Saturday, there was an accident on Farragut Road between East 42nd and East 43rd. And on Sunday, there was another accident where a Jeep hit a motorcyclist at the corner of 42nd and 42nd and Farragut. This is like it's a crazy spot, and this is only in the last week. But we have accidents, especially by the gas station. We have about 5 or 6 accidents every summer. So I do not see the safety of bike lane and Farragut Road. That's it. So that's.
Thank you. Happy to try to take those in order. So Lauren is showing the cross section of Snyder that you mentioned. It's a 30-foot wide street, so you can kind of see the dimensions here on your screen. This meets industry standard, and we have these across the city, so we know that there is space for everyone, meaning motorists, cyclists, and pedestrians, to use the street here. With regard to Farragut, I think you're the second person on the call who's mentioned that it's, I think, dangerous was the word used. Then perhaps we should try something, right? We should just leave it the same. And I think that's why we're here, right? We want to try to help organize it, tighten up some of the lanes, potentially address some of those issues. And then the first question when you started was connectivity, how these streets were chosen. I might pass it back to Lauren for that. The idea was to connect from 14 to 17, but I'll let her give the full thought there.
Yeah, I think that, we all know how challenging the street grid is in this general area. So a lot of the thinking was, what is the best way to get across Bedford Avenue? What is the best way to get across Flatbush Avenue? And how can we meet the network that is being built in CB14? So that's where a lot of, picking Cortelyou Road, Foster and Farragut came from. But we also are cognizant of the role of Holy Cross Cemetery as serving as sort of a boundary in this neighborhood. So we wanted to make sure that folks could get around it and get on either side of it. So that's where Snyder Avenue comes into play, as well as Schenectady and Beverly Road. And in the areas where it is too narrow to put a standard bike lane, we have our shared lane treatment. And yeah, that's the where most of the proposal was born. And we wanted to create a new north-south connection on New York Avenue and Brooklyn Avenue. But overall, we really want to avoid streets that were truck routes and heavily commercial. So yeah, not Linden, not Church Avenue, not Avenue D. Wanted to make sure we pick streets that were continuous. So, you know, with all of that in mind, this is how we chose these routes.
Okay, thank you.
Wait, I'm sorry, Khadijah. I know that you have an order and I apologize, but one thing that didn't address in my comment was the cost of the city bike and the expense, additional burden of the expense of the city bikes that they're trying to put more into the community. I'm sorry, but that question just went over. Nobody addressed it. Sorry.
Oh, sure. Happy to comment on that. We, you know, City Bike is operated by a separate company. I just want to put that out there. But there are membership options. And if you are an individual that receives SNAP benefits, you receive a deep discount. So an annual membership, I believe, runs around $200 a year. So I guess divide that by 365, you're paying less than $1 a day to be a member, which entitles you to class standard bikes. So these are the non-electric bikes. You can use them up to 45 minutes at a time. So yeah, that's a little cheaper than the subway for sure, and the bus. As far as the electric bikes, that's where I think that the cost can increase. If you're not a member, it does cost money to unlock them, and then also to use them per minute. If you are a member, I believe the unlock fee is free. But it does cost per minute to use them. And that's just the electric bikes. So standard bikes, the blue ones that don't have the batteries, with a membership, I'm sorry, I'm not sure what it's like without a membership, but with a membership, it's free for 45 minutes.
Okay, next person that I saw with their hand up was Marguerite.
Yes, just FYI, you know, City Bike is not public transportation. It's a privately owned company that's being forced into all of our neighborhoods. So I just want to say that. The second thing I want to say is Farragut Road is a truck route. It might not be a legal truck route, but it is a truck route. There's trucks there all the time. And if you put a bike lane there, you're going to have more accidents, not less accidents. But what I really want to say is I don't think that we should be supporting with our tax money any more of these bike lanes until bikes are licensed and registered and can be ticketed.
Liable to law.
And that's really all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Marguerite. The next person is Miss Leononi.
Hi, it's Leonie Logan.
Leonie, I'm so sorry.
No worries. And I'm the block president on East 40 between Farragut and Glenwood Road. So I'm the third person or fourth person emphasizing about Farragut Road being dangerous. The Pathmark supermarket right there on Albany and Farragut, between Farragut and Glenwood. My comments are addressed to Mr. Keith Bray. I understand you're on this call.
I am here.
Okay. We have been trying since September of 2008 to get speed humps or speed bumps on East 40 between Farragut and Glenwood. We are the block over from the park, from Perdigat Park. In 2008, a driver came down the block on East 40th from Avenue D going 80 to 90 miles an hour. And because it was another enraged driver with some domestic incident, and he didn't stop until he got into the next block at after Glenwood Road, just because cars stopped him and he pummeled up in the air. So we've been trying since then. In January of 2020, Senator Kevin Parker sent you a letter on behalf of our block association to try to get something done with street calming and speed humps. We've also sent a letter to our council member, Farah Lewis, November 2020. My assistant treasurer came to the town hall meeting on Thursday, May 8th. I had to attend a funeral, so I wasn't able to get to that town hall, but he represented us. And we are still trying to this day to try and get something done. So, Mr. Bray, I implore you to look again at East 40th between Farragut and Glenwood. We need something done.
Thank you for coming this evening, and thank you for bringing this to my attention. I will look into this matter with Rhonda Messer, who's a rep for 317, and we will get back to you shortly on what's going on in this. I'm assuming we may have denied it, but I'm not sure. I just need to look into it and find out more. And if this doesn't work, there are other traffic calming methods that we can use for traffic. And I'm very sorry about the tragic incident that you spoke about earlier.
Thank you very much.
This is
Thank
Rhonda.
you.
I'm sorry, I just
Okay.
wanted to follow up. That was East 40th Street between Farragut Road and what was the other cross street?
Farragut and Glenwood Roads.
And Glenwood Road.
Yes.
And sorry, I deal with a lot of issues, so I don't remember off the top of my head why this was studied and denied. But I know that we looked at it more than one time, but we will confer about it again.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Okay, the next person I see is Adele, and then Vanessa, then Daniel, and then Hazel. Adele, you're next.
Yes, good evening. What I like to say is I concur with the last few people that spoke. We voted on this. Our elected officials came in with us. We said we did, but they keep coming back pushing it. And as you said, it's not for us, it's for the community to connect. And we don't want to connect with them. And it's expensive, and it does money into these other companies' pockets. It doesn't help us, and it isn't right. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Adele. Vanessa, you're next.
Good evening. I live on Farragut and Troy. And I just want to say that Farragut Road, just what everyone just said, happens to be a speedway. And it would be very dangerous if you put a bike lane there. Summertime, it becomes dirt bike heaven. So you put a bike lane there, those bikers will not survive. Because after 4 p.m., they gas up and they become racing cars out there. It's about 10 to 20 at any given time in the summertime. They're about to start up now because they're out of school. And they will start doing their dirt bike riding from Farragut and Utica all the way to Farragut and Nostra. So you doing that, putting that bike lane there, you're asking for a lot of accidents. They do both sides of the street every single day. So I would not do Farragut Road at all. And Farragut Road happens to be half residential and half industrial. And that's a problem for the residents here. And you have the Glenwood Masons, you have the Costco, you have a lot of trucks around here. And that's all day long from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Sometimes later. And that's 6 days a week. So you have a lot to contend with around here. That's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Daniel, you're next.
You can let Hazel Martinez go in front of me. That's the problem.
Okay. Hazel, you're next.
Okay, I have two comments. One, have you all been to these areas where you're planning to put these bike lanes? Because have you walked the streets? Because if you think about Snyder Avenue, Snyder between Nostrand and Rogers has a precinct has a fire station and absolutely has no space almost for one car to go down the street. I can't see where a bike lane would go there where the biker would survive. And the other thing is, it takes very long for residents of this community to get any of the other road services, such as bumps in the road. It took us 16 years to get
Hello.
one. And some streets have
Hello.
two. And
Hello, can you please mute Mr. Federico Watson?
so we need to have some, we need,
I've
I
been
mean,
trying to mute Miss Khadija, but it is not working. I don't know what's going on with WebEx. I'll try again.
Thank you. Sorry, Miss
so
Hazel.
okay, so we need to look. I mean, our community does not get things that they want. We get things that we don't want. I mean, even though I must thank Rhonda for our Avenue D getting the calming measures that it recently got in the last 2 weeks, where the street is redesigned because and even increased the parking. But there we have bicycle places where bicycles are on the side, city bikes are on the sidewalk, leaving very little room for people to navigate. And some of our sidewalks, especially over there on New York Avenue, have only one flag. So that means that and it's got a mailbox on it as on top of that. So I don't know where any of this stuff would go. And some of our parking is taken away with the ride share. So all of that has to be taken into consideration, including the reckless bicycle riders.
Thank you, Miss Martinez. Okay, so I see a lot of hands are still up for people who spoke. Are you guys raising your hands up because you still want to speak again, or you have another comment, or it's just there because you forgot to take your hands down?
I forgot to
Well,
take my
I have
down
another
too.
question.
Okay, Miss Marguerite, you're next. Go ahead.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, so my next question is, we're saying this, we're giving you this information. You have an agenda, but are you going to work with us? Because like we're all saying, we don't want the bike lane on Farragut Road. Are you going to work with us and not put it on Farragut Road, or are you going to just push it on us anyway? Or anything else that we might want to modify? What is the agenda here? Are you just, this is it? You're doing this, or are we talking about it further and you're going to listen to us?
No, we're here to listen to you. And if there's locations that do work or that we should look into or focus resources on, that's why we're here, right? You know your neighborhood the best. You keep hearing that Farragut is dangerous, but it sounds like no one wants to change it at all. What could work there?
Yes,
What
we
do you
all should.
want?
We
What?
should change it. We can take it away. It's a truck route that's not supposed to be a truck route. So that would be one of the things that if we had signage there and people didn't actually take their trucks down there, that would protect it. It's not that dangerous besides the trucks. So, but if you put a bike lane there with the trucks and everything else that happens with dirt bikes and things like that, it's not going to be safe. Putting a bike lane there is not going to make it safer. That's the agenda that you're pushing, that the bike lane is going to make that safe. The bike lane is not going to make Farragut Road safe. You want to talk about other ways to make Farragut Road safe? Yes, we can do that. But we don't want a bike lane on Farragut Road, period.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're interested. Oh, go ahead, Keith. Sorry.
Yeah, Sam, yeah, we heard that loud and clear, obviously from multiple people now in this call, and Farragut is something we'll definitely think about. When it comes to trucks, New York City DOT is working with a lot of stakeholders about truck routes throughout the city, and you're right. Somebody said earlier, part of the reason why trucks are there is it's part of the residential and it's partially industrial or business, so that's why the trucks are there, and they're probably not going away anytime soon. So it's definitely not going away anytime soon. So we do have bike routes in some mixed areas, some mixed industrial areas. It's not unsafe for them. Trucks do maneuver, though obviously trucks have visibility issues that are different from vehicles, from regular passenger vehicles. Obviously, it's very clear. So that can be an issue with cyclists. But we do have them. And as Sean has said, this is a treatment, and I understand some people may not want to see the data, but we're going to share the data with the board to share it to all of you. that these are things that organize the road and make these roads safer. I think another thing we've heard a lot tonight, and obviously I can't wait to hear from Dan, my good friend Danny from Lewis's office, but we've heard a lot about cyclists not being enforced upon, and they are. The NYPD has done some spot enforcement in areas, and they're doing more. So certainly, that to say right on sidewalks, breaking, right, beating red lights, running, speeding. So they are doing more of that. They've heard a lot of the complaints from the city, and they're doing more efforts on that. So that's some. And then I'm looking at Snyder as well. So I heard this coming on Snyder, and I will look at that. And then lastly, I just want to go back to one comment that was made right before, was that about DOT services that are not being delivered to the board that you're asking for while we're giving you bike lanes you're not asking for. So I would like to, speed humps, definitely we got that one block, and there may be reasons for that, but not for this meeting, but certainly me and Ron would love to talk to the board and the DM at a future time about services you feel you're not receiving. And then we'd like to talk to you about that, and maybe we can work on some of those things or explaining why you're not. So we will follow up on that.
Okay. All right. So I kind of want to give my feedback since I think everyone has spoken. I would really like, if you guys were to present this, to make it detail oriented to the community board, state facts of what's going on. Like, one of the concerns we do see is that you saying that there are accidents, right? How many bike accidents have you seen in this district? How many bikes are being utilized through the city bikes in this district, right? This will also give you the information that you guys are looking for when you are determining to create these bike lanes, right? Another concern is, you're saying that if we were to take these city bikes and put them in, it's going to make it safer. So if it's going to make this this community board more safer, does that mean that you will start getting rid of the speed traps? Does that mean that you also start getting rid of the red light traffic lights? Because this community has seen an abundance, more than other community boards, of red light traffic, speed cameras in this community. And we are in a two-fare zone. We are homeowners, we are residents, we are families, we have everything, but we get impounded with additional bills. We get blackouts. We get all these things that are happening in this community board. So to try to include, and we have all these factors in here, I think the roads and the amount is too much. This might work in Williamsburg. This might work in Crown Heights. This doesn't work here. So the question I have for you is, before you decide to let's go on to design this, let's really make this look more detail oriented for us to look at it. Like, putting it all in one does not give us the illusion. Put it street by street. This is what it will look like. Street by street, this is what will happen. Then maybe you can see, because we're looking at just even Holy Cross, around there's nothing but speed bumps. So are you going to get rid of those speed bumps to do this? Are you leaving the speed bumps?
They stay. Of course, they stay.
Okay, so then there's still no parking, because when we put those speed bumps, we got rid of a lot of parking, right? So how do you do this? How does a cyclist maneuver if parking is nowhere around? If cars are trying to go through it, it doesn't look realistic. It's not being shown in a manner of where it's showing that, yes, this makes sense, that we should do this. Because all this graph does not help us. We need to be more visual, and this, by putting it just in a map form, does not do that. And I think you guys have to be more detail oriented and be more specific for your demographic in what you are trying to do.
Sure.
So
We
Khadija, can I-
prepared the cross sections. Is that this is what the typical blocks look like, right? So we went through this to show what each cross section would look like, right? So which ones specifically did you have a question about?
So let's look at this one. This one
Yeah.
doesn't have speed bumps in it. So how does this look with speed bumps? How does the bike lane look with speed bumps?
The
How?
same. Oh, sorry.
How?
the cyclist would go over the speed bump just the same as a vehicle would. So speed bumps are typically located in mid-block locations. And just as the center line usually follows a speed bump on, the markings would, and you would just ride over the speed bump with your bike if you're a cyclist, and motorists, it would just be the same experience as beforehand, just with a slightly narrower lane, which would encourage motorists to drive at the speed limit.
So I'm sorry, I'm sorry, Khadijah. Can I get a moment?
Go ahead. Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. There are a couple of things. One, it is 9:30, and I know that our staff, Ms. Lyons, we're going past that time for her. But I wanted to just throw in a couple of things. We ask for many things in our community, i.e., speed humps, speed bumps. Okay, we ask for these things. But instead of providing these things, we lose parking, we get speed cameras, right? We get narrow streets. Speed bumps are extremely effective to curb traffic and curb movement than cameras are those things. Because if somebody doesn't know that there's a camera there, they're speed passing. If somebody's in a hazardous street with a bike lane, the bicyclist is going to get hurt, right? So why can't our community be provided the things that we want, such as speed humps and speed bumps, as opposed to the things that are more taxing, and again, we like to call it regressive taxes on individual, unforeseen expenses that in your budget that you don't budget for, especially now when you look at tariffs, when you look at all of these different things and the high cost of living, right, that's going on.
I
I
think
mean, I think you answered your own question because it's the same with alternate side parking. There would be a lot less people circling around, making more traffic if we only had it one day a week on each side, like a lot of other communities do, where people clean. I watch people all day clean in front of their buildings. These street cleaners don't come 2 times a week on each side. So a lot of this extra traffic is us driving around looking for parking.
So this is Rhonda. I just want to say that we don't make the deep cleaning schedule. So I mean, we can't even comment on that. Your desire to have it reduced to 1 day on each side, you really need to take that up with DSNY. We would not oppose it or
Yeah, I
support it.
know
It
I
has
need to
nothing to
pick
do
it
with
up with.
us.
I'm just saying that these are all part of the problem of why there's so much traffic on the road all the time, from 9:30 to, 8:30 to 10, whenever the alternate side is. I can't think of the hours. I'm watching people circle around, sit in their car, scrambling for parking spaces. I've seen bikers almost get hit because somebody saw a parking space real quick and they backing up to get to it. So all of these things factor in. So I'm saying it's not just a DOT issue.
Daniel, I see your hand is up.
Thank you. I'll try to be brief because I know it's late. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much, Commissioner Bray, for being on this call. I'm here mainly because we are very concerned. Firstly, I know that we sent a letter addressed to Commissioner Rodriguez about this issue on Friday the 13th, and we received a response. I know you had your liaison give me a call the following day, but we didn't get a substantial follow-up about that. We're a little bit concerned about the timeline and the outreach. I had to go ask a colleague of CB17 over in CB14 to get the amount of outreach that was actually conducted. Apparently, a letter addressed to Sean Camp from CB14 suggested that the only outreach there was only about 3 to 4 outreach events that was conducted within CB17. That was on Rockaway Parkway, that was on Utica, and that was in June of 2021. So it seems like our community received very little outreach regarding this project. So we're hopeful that in your timeline, which you are positing that will be commenced in summer of 2025 and implemented in fall of 2025 holds true. We also know that construction in the neighboring community board has already begun. That has already begun in sort of the phase 1 parts without any community notification. So we're a little bit concerned with the extent of the outreach. I hope you guys can clarify, because Councilmember Lewis is deeply concerned about outreach. A number of other elected officials are planning to reach Commissioner Rodriguez about this in the coming days. This is becoming a larger issue. And in terms of traffic calming, the second and last question I have, it seems like the daylighting that you proposed, the 4 locations you mentioned, are only happening in the very northwestern part of the district, none of which are in Councilmember Lewis's district. So it seems like where you're having a lot of the challenges with traffic calming, where you have the tools such as other community board members have mentioned, such as speed bumps, daylighting, other issues, they're not really being considered in deeper parts of East Flatbush. As you're aware, there was a motorcycle accident on the corner of Farragut and Albany Road. That area is zoned by a park and commercial stores. That would be a perfect candidate for daylighting. I ride a motorcycle. I have my helmet here to prove it, and yet you're not considering any daylighting in any other part of the district. So it's confusing that they're doing. You mentioned in the letter back to us that you've done 1,700 individuals engaged, but none of them can actually speak for the plan that you've proposed to us here. And this is the first time that you're coming to any elected since you personally sent my boss a letter on August 2nd, 2022. So we are hopeful if you can share with what the outreach actually looks like this summer and the fall before you begin implementing this plan, and to see what other tools are you using before you proceed. Thank you.
Hey, Daniel, thanks for your comments. This is a map that's on our website. Can you see this of all the locations where we did pop-up outreach? This has been on our website since 2021. So it's more than 3 or 4, which is I think what you said. It's on our website for everybody. I can drop the link in the chat.
Yeah, just to add to that, this is where we got to in 2021. There were additional locations in which we did outreach in 2022 as well.
I hear your point on more recent outreach, Daniel, and I know that I've already spoken to the commissioner's office about your letter, and thank you for the heads up about other elected officials probably joining that. We met with you and Chair Daly and others about other issues here. Commissioner Rodriguez did, and we can certainly have a discussion with the council member and the elected officials with Commissioner Rodriguez, and we can set something like that up. And that's what I was talking to them about. But certainly we look forward to having your letter, but that's sort of already in motion, just to let you know.
Appreciate it. We just want to make sure that the outreach is consistent. As you've heard from obviously we know that the bike lane law is legislation that went into effect in 2019. We want to be clear, we get it. You got to do what you got to do. It's just that we also know that the implementation needs to be consistent communication. The fact that we're hearing about it 2 years, 3 years after is a concern, and that's what prompted it. And just on the daylighting component, we know that there's a few pieces of legislation that DOT has been in support of and not in support of. One has been the e-bike licensure law. Councilmember Lewis did co-sponsor that. She is in support of licensing e-bikes. But in regards to daylighting, is there a reason why DOT is only selecting one part of the district that's not in Farrah Lewis? It's not in Monique Chandler Waterman's. It's not anywhere in the eastern part. Is there any reason for that?
Not at all. And if you have locations you would like us to focus on, we are all ears. You can put it in the chat right now and we'll start working on them. We identified these 3 locations along the border during our work. They popped up as some of the higher bike crash, right hook, left hook crash locations. So that's what led us there. If there are other locations that your office is supportive of, we can work on them tomorrow. Send them our way. That's why we're here.
Thank you. Sean, if you don't mind putting your email in the chat, I'd love to be in touch, because we do have a lot of high crash locations that this is a, we know that this may be considered as a remedy. We know we fought for crossing guards and other entities, street calming measures in other parts of the district. There are more tools to the toolbox, as other folks on this call have mentioned, that we'd love to bring to your attention. Thank you.
Let's do it. We're happy to collaborate. I think the best way to get a hold of me is for either Keith or Rhonda to drop their email in there so they can be part of all these conversations.
Yeah,
and they'll connect you to me. Go for it.
Okay, I want to ask if there's any more questions or comments before we move on to other topics. We are already running late.
I kind of do have another question. It's a short
Sure.
question. Yeah.
Go right ahead.
So I see there's bike lanes and, on this map, and I'm wondering why, if we're going to have a bike lane on Foster Avenue, why do we need one on the next block on Farragut Road? So that whole little area of residential, all those homes are going to have a bike lane at the top of their block and a bike lane on the bottom of their block. Why? Why do we need that?
That's a
Why not
great-
just one bike lane?
That is such a good question. Thank you. So the rationale behind having one on each lane is because we were hyper vigilant of not wanting to affect parking, not wanting to affect capacity. We found roads where you could put pairs. So a bike lane in one direction on Farragut and a bike lane in the other direction on Foster. So that's the thinking. It was actually because we thought through what the community may be supportive of, what could work here, what the impacts are, that we split it up. So we put one direction on one lane, on one street, and the other direction of the bike lane on the other. Had we put them both on the same street, we would have had to affect parking or capacity, and we were thoughtful about how that would affect the community. So that's the rationale.
Okay, thank you.
I love how when I'm hearing this, Mr. Daly again, I love how when I'm hearing you guys speak, it's like whenever somebody gives a suggestion that would say, increase the bike lanes or increase the bike racks, you guys love the idea. But when we give suggestions about other ways to improve safety, that's like, we have to think about that. We have to do this. I think the same level of excitement on one issue should be the same on the next. For example, Ms. Logan spoke about getting a speed hump or a speed bump on her block. There should be some level of excitement to say, hey, this is a way to help to curb traffic. We're going to do more than look into it. It shouldn't take 16 years to get a speed hump on a block, right? But if we say, put the bike lane on Clarendon Road, which already is on, oh yeah, we can look into that. I think that as a fairness to our community, that if we offer suggestions that the community feels and we have observed over the years that are important and are necessary to help to curb traffic, to increase the flow of traffic, these things should be more than glazed upon and not taken. And I don't. There might be taken serious. Enthusiasm that I hear is just not there, and the actual practice is although not there. I mean, we spoke, Commissioner Bray, I think in 2022 when we had a conversation about moving the bike rack on East 40th, on East 40th, on Cortelyou between Albany and East 40th. That's 3 years ago. We spoke on it. And every meeting we have spoken on it, and it's still there. And this bike rack is not utilized. There's a right turn there that people cannot make anymore. And that hasn't been done. But as quickly as somebody says something else like, oh, let's increase the amount of bike lanes, bike racks, we jump on that idea. We want you to take what we're saying, the whole, not just you, Commissioner Bray, but we want the whole unit, the whole DOT to consider the full impact of what our community is saying, not just the part that makes your presentation feels better that you are now able to go someplace else. We want to see more speed humps. We want to see more speed bumps. We want to see less bike lanes and less bike racks. Can we get that done? Not that we don't want to see any, but we want to see less because they're just underutilized and it's not cost effective. Our community I want to hear that same level of enthusiasm for the need of the people who live in Community Ward 17. And I don't hear that from you guys.
Chairperson Daly, we're very excited to put in speed humps. It's a safety device, and we're happy that people in your community actually like them and see them as being effective. They are effective. When they're denied, it's typically not because we're not excited by it. It's just that it did not meet the standards we have, which is basically speeding standards that our vehicles going a certain speed when we measure it. And if they're not, we don't approve it. But it's not that we're not excited, don't want to do it. It's just we have citywide that we follow. But that's why, again, we got the one location, East 40th, for the other locations. We're happy to talk to the board about other locations they have and other things. DOT is all about safety. We want things to be safer. That's one of the main mantras of our agency, and we believe in that. And it's not just city DOT, but the city government and the state government believes it too. I'm just going to say really briefly. I know time's running long, so I know everybody's got to go. But even with the speed cameras and the red light cameras that are being talked about, the state legislature, with the support of the city, extended speed cameras for 5 more years. They were going to quadruple the amount of red light cameras. It's been signed by the governor, it's approved by the state legislature, got local support from the city council, got support from the mayor. Everybody wants these, and then why they want them is because these are methods that improve safety, both at intersections and to slow down speeding. So we support these things, and it's not just DOT, the city and the state support them too, because they're proven methods to help New Yorkers stay safe and alive.
I'm sorry, Mr. Brave, but I'm still waiting to see where that lady who dragged that man a half a mile in front of me is, why she isn't locked up. Because there's mad speed cameras on the direction that she was going. So it's not always improving safety.
I will say DOT works with both the NYPD and also the Brooklyn DA on cases like that. I don't know the particulars of that case, but we'd have to talk to the NYPD and Brooklyn DA to see what the story is there, if we have more details.
Okay. Unfortunately, we still have stuff to address. So I would like to thank you, but I hope this is not the last that we'll hear from you. I would hope that maybe when we resume back in August or September, that we can get better clarification and visuals and data pertaining to how this impacts Community Board 17 and not just in general.
Absolutely, and we really appreciate everybody's time late this evening, the time to listen to us, and we've listened to your point of views, and we certainly look forward to continuing conversations about this matter.
Thank you. I'm just going to try to go through this quickly because I know that we ran over. What I am showing you is outside of us in our neighbor districts, City Bike is going to be expanding in the Brownsville, and these are the areas of where they will be placing City Bikes in the Brownsville and East New York area. The next thing I wanted to kind of bring attention to is to the busways. There's a proposed bill in regards to the New York State will be holding a public hearing on the proposed rules of taking place for June 27 at 10 a.m. This will include the impacts to areas of Utica, the corridors, Flatbush Avenue, Bedford, and Rogers. It will affect the traffic flow patterns of local access to public transportation efficiency, enforcement of fines in local businesses and deliveries, and parking availability. That is coming up on June 27th, 2025. The next one is the speed limits for e-bikes and e-scooters and pedals assisting commercial bicycles. The hearing for that one is going to be taking place on July 14th, 2025, and this is to kind of give the proposed bill is to impose a speed limit for e-bikes and electric scooters, pedals assisting commercial bikes to align with the existing speed limit for electric scooters in New York State. great. If anyone can attend, it'll be great because the more that we hear in numbers, the more that we can then vocalize that whether we are for speed limits for e-bikes or if we're not. The next kind of rules that have been adapted are jaywalking. It's no longer allows pedestrians to cross any roadways other than limited access to highways, while clarifying that the pedestrians who fail to yield to the right of way of traffic will not be subject to a violation of traffic rules. The next one is the operation of mopeds on bridges. So this rule has been amended. This rule now to is to remove prohibits of operation of mopeds on the Brooklyn Bridge and lower roadways of the Edge, Koch, Queensboro Bridge, while leaving in the place of prohibition operations of mopeds on Manhattan Bridge and Williamsburg Bridge. This decision allows mopeds to operate on the Brooklyn Bridge and on the lower roadway of the Queensboro Bridge was based on data showing that while the speed limit on the Ed Koch Queensboro Road is 35 per hour and the speed limit would be 40. So just to be aware, mopeds can ride on the Brooklyn Bridge and the Queensboro Bridge. For anyone who they made an amendment for insurance for anyone who's doing tax and limousines commissions. I'm really not going to go into it because I know that we're over. And I would like to, if there is any new business, and I know we really can't go into it in details, but any new business, please raise your hand. None. Okay, Adele?
I just wanted to know what happened to Mr. S. Sullivan. I put it in the chat.
We've reached out to him and he has yet to, we've reached out, we still are waiting for them to respond to invites, but I am working on it diligently.
May I make a suggestion? Maybe we can get the politicians involved.
Sure.
He can't duck out on us.
I agree. Any other new business?
Just to, in closure, just to remind everyone, even though the committees are not meeting over the summer, the board does still have many things going on, including this Saturday with NB. So if you have a young person, I was still looking some donation for the third prize. So if anybody wants to make a donation for the gift card for the third place winner, that would be deeply appreciated. We have co-sponsoring the back to school giveaway August 1st. We have certain things to Parks and Beautification. Please make sure that you're on the constant contact list at the board. Contact any of the staff members at the board to find out. And if you have a daycare, youth happening is August 7th. Even if you don't have a daycare, but you have a young person, a grandchild, a nephew, a niece, whatever the case is, under 14 years old, have them come out. We're gonna have rock climbing, the smokehouse, DJ, food, other activities, basketball, skating, so many things that children can do on August 7th. So put it on your calendar and try to come out. And I also want to thank all of the individuals who came out yesterday. If you didn't get a chance, we're going to try to do a yearly mixer for everyone during the last week of June. So if you didn't get a chance to come this year, please make sure you come next year. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other new business? Any old business? Dan, you still have your hand up. You wanted to say something? Okay. Do I have a notion to adjourn this meeting?
Motion to adjourn, Adele Bennett.
Can I get a second?
Leonie Logan seconded.
Thank you. This is my first year and I think I survived and I'm excited. Yay. I do see a lot to move forward with this group and I want to say thank you to everyone who has helped me, given me guidance. I wouldn't have made it this far. I probably would have quit. But with your information and your insight, we made it and we can actually conclude and say this is our last meeting for the year. So thank you. And I think we're making strides. we'll see more. Hopefully, fingers crossed. Everyone enjoy your night. Thank you. And thank you, Miss Nadine, for staying a few extra minutes. Everyone get home, stay cool.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Good night.
Good night. Good night, everyone.
Good
Good
night.
night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.